Dave Richard here, riding solo, no Adam Azer. He texted me, he said, giving my grandmother a foot bath for fun. Whatever that means, whatever that floats your boat, Adam, good with me. Okay, week 10, big time issues ahead for everybody in fantasy football. The Chiefs are on bye, the Bengals are on bye, Cowboys are on bye. The Titans are not really being started by anybody, but they're on bye too. So we need to give you some names to help you fill your lineup and get ahead of it for week number 10. It's much better for your fantasy team to pick up your players now rather than deal with waivers and fab and all that stuff next Tuesday. And we start with not one big name, but three big names. And they're all at tight end, and they're all going to give you 0 points in week number 9. We talked about it already. It's Harold Fannin with the Browns, David Njoku with the Browns for now, and Mason Taylor with the Jets. And Taylor's the one most widely available, 72% available on CBS. Njoku around 50% of the league, Harold Fannin around 40% of leagues. I like Fannin the best of the three. I think he's got some good long-term power for fantasy managers, especially if Njoku does get traded. And the other interesting thing here, we've got the Browns at the Jets in week number 10. So it could be a fantasy tight end fiesta in that game. Lord knows there won't be a lot of wide receivers. Hey, one other tight end to keep you aware of, and this is just an IR stash. It's Brenton Strange with the Jaguars, 84% available. If you've got an IR spot, you can throw Brenton Strange in there. We know he's going to be a factor for Jacksonville at some point. Let's hightail it over to quarterbacks. You're going to need somebody to replace Patrick Mahomes, Dak Prescott, Joe Flacco. You might need somebody for Flacco in week number 9. 4 quarterbacks that you might be able to find on waivers, i.e. they're already rostered in a huge percentage of leagues. CJ Stroud, Aaron Rodgers, Brock Purdy, Sam Darnold. I don't mind some of them for week number 9. I don't mind any of them for week number 10. Stroud would be my favorite of the group. He's taking on Jacksonville in week 10. He's available in about a third of CBS leagues. But let's say you can't get any of them. Who do you go for? We're going right back to that Browns-Jets game, and we're going to Justin Fields. And I know trusting Justin Fields, it's icky, it's gross, but you know what? He did pretty well for us last week, 54% available, taking on the Browns. Not the easiest matchup in the world, but he'll run. And we know that Justin Fields is capable of getting some good numbers. If you can't get your hands on him, look for Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy, Bryce Young, Tyler Shuck. Yeah, it's gross at quarterback. Running back, though. Running backs. How about a spot starter for week 9 and week 10? I got 2 names for you. First one is Kyle Monangai of the Bears, 39% available, probably rostered in a bunch of leagues already, but he's at Cincinnati. Then he's got the Giants. And DeAndre Swift did not practice on Wednesday and Thursday. What if this guy ends up being the lead back for the Bears in week 9, maybe even longer? We can dream, can't we? But even if Swift plays, Monangai has been playing alongside him. The numbers have been pretty good. Jeremy McNichols is a much less appealing name. He's got Seattle in week 9, Detroit in week 10, but he's 87% available. If it's a PPR league, maybe he can get you to 10 PPR points. Game script should be in his favor in each of his next 2 games because I don't see the Commanders building a lead with the run against the Seahawks or the Lions. 2 more names to know. Brashard Smith, 54% available. A lot of people are already stashing him to see how he does in week 9. We know Isaiah Pacheco is not going to play for the Chiefs. I'm not that excited about him, especially taking on Buffalo. But if he has a big game, hey, you'd have him on your fantasy team. You'd have to hold him through his bye, but he's somebody who could evolve into something. And then Terrell Jennings. Who is Terrell Jennings? Well, he was a guy who ended up being a fourth quarter grind the clock down running back for the Patriots. And the only reason why I'm bringing him up is because Ramondre Stevenson didn't practice on Wednesday or Thursday for New England. And we think it's going to be TreVeyon Henderson. And this is finally going to be TreVeyon Henderson's time to shine. I don't know. This coaching staff has held him back quite a bit. They've talked Terrell Jennings up a lot, and he's 99% available. 2 other names, stashes, guys you can't use in week number 9, but you could stash them before week 10. Isaiah Davis with the Jets, Dylan Sampson with the Browns. We'll be right back with wide receivers and DSTs that you could stash. Welcome back. Wide receivers for week 9. My favorite one to go and get. It's a Titan, but I've been talking about him for a couple weeks now. Shimray Dike, 76% available, takes on the Chargers. This feels a lot more like a 1-week thing Like, even if it has a pretty good game against the Chargers, I don't know how many fantasy managers are going to hold him through the bye. I don't know what his numbers will be like when Calvin Ridley comes back. But Chimere, Dike, the last 2 weeks, a lot of PPR points. Fantasy managers should be impressed with that. But if you don't want to trust a Titan or a rookie wide receiver, here are some other names to know. Christian Watson, 37% available. He's taking on Carolina in week 9. Philly in week 10. These are not the easiest matchups, but if he becomes the Packers' top wide receiver, you'll be happy you have him on your fantasy team. Darius Slayton is effectively the number 1 downfield receiver for the Giants. Don't see that changing anytime soon. And he's available in 74% of leagues. He has the Niners this week. He's got the Bears in week 10. You could do worse at wide receiver than Darius Slayton, who, if not for a ticky-tack flag last week, would have been one of the most added wideouts in fantasy football. Some other names: Josh Downs with the Colts, Alec Pierce with the Colts, Trey Tucker with the Raiders, and some IR stashes at wide receiver because we can never have enough of those. Cedric Tillman with the Browns, Jaden Reed with the Packers, Brandon Ayuk. Remember him? Of course you do. We've been talking about him on this show for the past few weeks. He's a good IR stash, as is Jalen McMillan with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. DSTs. You can move on from the Chiefs DST. If you're not using them this week against Buffalo, you shouldn't be using them this week against Buffalo. And then they're on bye in week 10. So who could you get? The Colts DST. Week 9 against Pittsburgh. Week 10 against Atlanta. Atlanta's been giving up some fantasy points to DSTs over the past couple of weeks. That's interesting. And it's basically because of the quarterback play that they have had. Indianapolis's defense is starting to play a little bit better. Their pass rush has always been good. They're an interesting unit that you could use week 9 and week 10. But for just week 10, the Browns DST, they're taking on the Jets. 10 or more fantasy points to 5 of the past 7 DSTs that they've taken on. Otherwise, the Panthers DST against the Saints and Tyler Shuck, and the Bears DST against the Giants. They've also been giving up some fantasy production to DSTs. I think that those are interesting options as well if you need a DST to replace the Chiefs. That's all we've got. Remember, Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, we are here answering all of your fantasy football questions, getting you ready for week 9, making sure your lineups are as good as they can be. Plus, we'll have all the latest news and actives and everything else. All you got to do is go to youtube.com, search for Fantasy Football Today, like the videos, subscribe to the videos, because then you'll know when we're on. Help yourself win your fantasy football leagues. Thanks for watching. Good luck in week 9.